What is up, everyone? I am Quaman Star G, a key to your MulDiverse, and welcome to this special MulDiversity video. Yes, indeedy, ladies and gentlemen, I and a very special friend will be letting you guys know what is our favorites, the creme de la creme, the toppest of all top tier games that we played in the year 2020. And you may be asking yourself, Quaman Star, Q, who is this friend? Who is this person that could possibly give us the goods and let us know what they've been enjoying in the video game realm all 2020? And that, my friends, is a very easy and simple answer. Jesse, let them know who you is and what do you do?
Hey Q, thank you so much for that intro, man. I am a freelance writer. I do most of my work by contract. Most of this listening base, I assume, would know me from my work with Comic Book Debate. I'm a volunteer there, part of the writing team, working really hard to actually build up their gaming division as we go into 2021. Hopefully, content like this, you'll see more from me in the future. Anyone who wants to keep track of that can find me at Suplex Inferno on Twitter.
Yes, indeedy. His wrestling takes are also pretty fire as well. And with that being said, 2020 has been a dumpster fire for a lot of people in a lot of ways. But one of the main ways that people have been able to cope and just make it through it has been video games. We've all been at home for an extended period of time with very little opportunity to go out and enjoy ourselves in ways we are normally used to. And sitting at home with a controller in your hand has been an outlet for a lot of individuals. So we thought, instead of going and doing the traditional, what were the top 10 games of 2020, let's make it more personal. Let's look inward and say, what were the top 10 games we played, new or old, in the year 2020? And I know this list will shock, awe, and kind of confuse some people, but it doesn't matter because this is our personal list. This isn't objective in any way. This is subjective. So I hope you guys are ready. I hope you guys are sat tight, got some nice food and drink in your hand, ready to absorb, ready to yell in agreement or yell in anger about us not having one of your games at a higher ranking or wondering why this old or new game is on this list. But in any case, I'm gonna throw it to Jesse so he can bless y'all with his top 10, with his number 10 pick.
Yeah, and I think you put that perfectly. This year, gaming was really about escapism more than ever. So a lot of my decisions, and I'm sure yours, were based on just what we could pick up and play and really sink into the most, regardless of what year that game came out. I say that, but ironically, you will all learn that my list features nothing but games from 2020. Starting that list at number 10 is Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian Studios. It's a top-down isometric RPG with heavy roots in the tabletop gaming industry, just like the previous Baldur's Gate games before it. It's only so low on my list because this is still an early access game, but with that said, there's tons to offer here, from character customization to multiplayer experiences. Larian Studios is phenomenal with communicating to their player base. So the things that I've been able to experience there, specifically with my friends, really carved out a nice corner of this year when I was just able to get away, go off to this crazy fantasy world inspired by the likes of Dungeons and Dragons, and just enjoy myself.
Yeah. See, Baldur's Gate has always been one of those game franchises for me that I've always watched from a distance, but have in friends and family who's dabbled in it from time to time. And so definitely I can feel that pick, definitely, especially with just the resurgence over the last 5 or so years of the whole Dungeons, Dragons, mythological, the Skyrims, your Game of Thrones, that whole aesthetic resurging, Witcher. So I can very much see why Baldur's Gate 3 has really reached into your heart and made it, a standout. Jesse, if you don't mind me asking, what is some of the best gameplay mechanics that you feel like sets this game well above many others that have come out this year?
Cohesion, I think. The ability to kind of synergize with your party members, and whether those are played by the AI or by your friends online. The ability to just kind of carve out an experience that is entirely defined by the group that you are playing. Um, it's very varied, is what I was going to say. A lot of branching paths, a lot of different routes you can take, and anytime you run through it, the experience is entirely new, which, like I said, really lended itself to, despite being an early access game, giving me tons to play.
Most definitely. And what is your favorite class? Because I know those type of games have a lot of
Oh man,
varied class systems.
you are opening a deep pit. I normally lean towards martial classes, so I've been playing anything that really focuses on melee combat. I did dabble in magic, but as I tell my friends, my brain is a little bit too smooth to grasp the depths of the mage classes. So I always fall back on things like fighter. Hopefully soon they add in barbarians. But for the most part, yeah, I've just been running variations of fighter.
Cool. And one more thing, what is your most favorite moment of playing this game this year? What was the moment this year where you like, hot damn, this is the game for me. Right. I need to sink as many hours into this as possible.
So this, I'm sure you're expecting like a profound and very legitimate answer here, and unfortunately the answer I have is actually just hysterical. This was an early access game, so when it first came out, things even still aren't fully there yet. Like, this is, hey, come help us play test so we can build the best game possible. Going into the game, after you go through character customization and you run like that first tutorial area, the opening narrative sees you on the ship of like this alien species. They're dangerous, they're formidable, and you are doing everything that you can to get away from them, including bringing that ship down. There's a quick cinematic as that is occurring where like your player is in this ship careening towards the surface of the planet, and they look over like panicked and frightened, and who is across from you also panicked and frightened, except for one of these huge formidable like alien monstrosities. You guys just like make eye contact, and it's almost like one of those like we're screwed moments from like a buddy cop movie. I didn't see it coming, like completely floored me. I started laughing hysterically, and it just kind of solidified the game as like, okay, I'm just gonna have fun with this. Like, I don't have to commit in too serious of a direction, whether it's in tone or in character, and it really just set the pace for me to just have fun with the game.
No doubt. That's gonna, you're gonna hear me echo a lot of those sentiments the further we get down this list. So Baldur's Gate for Jesse is his number 10 game of the year in his eyes. His number 10 in his top 10 list of games he's played. So I guess it's my go. And my number 10 pick is a game that is going to perk up a lot of ears to a lot of people, because this game is a classic. It is an oldie but goodie. I literally scooped this up in the first month of this year, thinking that, oh man, I can't wait to just restock up on some PS3 games. And little did I know that was not going to happen as much as I thought it would. But this was a game I have been longing to play for over a decade now. Never had the opportunity to play this game until this very year, to finally answer an age-old question: what is the best Dragon Ball Z game of the PS2 era? Budokai Tenkaichi 3 or this game? Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 is my number 10 game I've played this year, because it's kind of a love-hate relationship, Jesse. I gotta say it's about a love-hate. I love it because it captures the essence of pre-Dragon Ball Z Kai, pre-Dragon Ball Z Super, just straight up Toonami, Cartoon Network era Dragon Ball Z goodness, from the aesthetic to the music to the way that certain scenes are replayed and everything. Because back in the day, I played the hell out of Budokai 1 and 2, but never had the chance to play the third one. So just experiencing that from a basic design, once again, just the nostalgia just washing over me, being able to do something I love doing in video games, which is going back and playing through story moments at your most powerful when the game didn't intend you to be this powerful, like going back and being Super Saiyan 4 Goku or Vegeta, or doing the fusions or whatever, like, and playing in the Saiyan saga. That really was exciting and fun to me. And then watching the dynamics of these cinematic super moves, whether it's the Dragon Rush and the ultimate attacks, just spoke so heavily to it. But I will say that it did piss me off a lot in a lot of ways, but it pissed me off in an endearing way. Does that make sense?
Of course
Like,
it does.
like, does it make sense that something hurts so that you ended up loving it so much, but it hurt you so bad? Like, it was something that was the Dragon Rush. I'm not even gonna just beat around the bush. It's the Dragon Rush system. The Dragon Rush system absolutely pissed me off, and the difficulty spike pissed me off. But I still loved it because it was emulating what the gameplay was at the time. When 10-year-old Q would have played the hell out of it and probably found some cheesy way to win and been happy. But 25-year-old Q was like, oh my God, why is this game considered one of the best again? Oh, because it does this. Now I remember now, but still, and just, it was a nostalgia trip. It was a nostalgia trip. It was a Dragon Ball Z game. Spoilers, is not the only Dragon Ball game on this list, but it was just an awesome experience, good and bad. So yeah, that's my number 10. You got anything to add to that, Jesse?
I have so much to add. So you and I don't get to talk about all of our mutual interests, but Dragon Ball is definitely one of them. And hearing you add that game to your list is bringing that same wave of nostalgia back to me. I'm especially glad that you mentioned 10-year-old Q, because 13-year-old Jesse loved that game. But I absolutely adored and very fondly remember Budokai 3. So much so that my, blurry nostalgia goggles would even put that right next to the likes of Xenoverse 2, right next to Fighters, as, the top Dragon Ball games. And I think it has a lot to do with the feeling I had at the time and just how much I loved it. And like you said, how much it captured the essence of the series as it was then. It's definitely a blast from the past. It's still fun to go back and play. While it is frustrating, certainly, it's just kind of a gem from like a golden era of it's like Toonami, man, Cartoon Network. It was a whole different time, and that game kind of just encapsulates the feelings that I had in that whole time period. So definitely one that I will always cherish, and I'm glad that you were able to keep that on your list.
Yeah, man. I was like, there was like one part, like this 2-month part where I was just playing and I was like, God, man, this is just kicking my ass. Like, Jesus, can I get a reprieve? But then I'm like, I go back a couple of weeks later and I'm like, you know what, this game really is worth it. Like it really is worth it. And I can see why it touched so many people in a positive way, and a lot of Dragon Ball fans. Still think Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is better, but I didn't play it this year, so it doesn't get on the list. So I'm gonna throw it back to you for your number 9, Jesse.
Yeah, number 9 is Ghost of Tsushima. This is by Sucker Punch. I'm sure everyone listening knows what this game is by now. I believe this won both Best Art Direction and the Player's Choice Award at the recent Game Awards.
It did.
Wonderful game. And it was kind of a different experience for me than it was for a lot of players, because I think a lot of people got into it as the samurai action game, and it obviously was. But for me, it really came from an era in world history that I'm very much interested in. That whole period of East Asia society is something that I've always paid close attention to and kind of studied, following both the Mongols, the Japanese, and finding a game that presented, both perspectives. Well, I shouldn't say both perspectives. This was a very much the Japanese perspective, but just showed off two societies that I was equally interested in from that era. It gave me a whole other layer to what was already a very well-designed game. I'm typically not a fan of open world games. There won't be very many more of them on my list, just because I sometimes feel that the narrative loses direction and the pacing kind of suffers. But Sucker Punch nailed it. Their ability to kind of make navigating the world a natural experience, whether that's seeing a fox in the distance and following it to some sort of hidden collectible, or seeing something else like a smoke pillar rising from the trees and investigating what that might be. It was a much more pleasant way to go from A to B without constantly staring at a mini map.
Yeah, I see. I'm all of the things that you're describing to me is just making me want to play the game more, and I have it, but time has just not been on my side these past couple of months. But my brother, just speaking on it, he's played it and beated it, and everything you said is right on the money on his descriptions, and he's into like he loves open world games. He loves that feeling of exploration and dynamics, the dynamics of traversing this large area. And I'm just as a observer, not too much because I don't want to get spoiled, because there's a lot of these, because there's like at least 2 games on your list that I do not want to know the particulars on, and I believe you would know that this was one, and I believe the other one. But just from the basis technical levels is just, yeah, this game is amazing. It looks amazing. It plays amazing. The fact that you can play it in full Japanese, like, and get the authentic experience. You can do it in black and white, reminiscent of the old school samurai films, and get that aesthetic. All of that is cool. And then, of course, the awesome photo modes, which has been a staple for a lot of these AAA games, and rightfully so, to really capture what makes these games so great. I can definitely see why this game is, so on so many people's top 10 lists, and why it won best art direction and player's choice. My question, though, is that I was not expecting it to be this low on your list, because a lot of people rank this number 1. So what in your opinions kind of kept it from being a little bit higher?
Right. And that's a very fair question. Unfortunately, my answer is just going to be taste. Like I said, I'm not typically one to jump into the open world style of presentation, and while this game did deliver on a lot of areas I think other open world titles don't, it was still by its nature an open world game, and there were times when I thought that the plot was so urgent that I didn't want to go out and seek these side quests. And whenever I'm in a moment in a game where the main narrative makes it seem like all of these little side tasks that I have to do are kind of trivial, I start to get a little bit disconnected, because I start wondering, like, listen, my island is being invaded by the Mongols. I am not going to go off on some 15-hour, side quest line just to get some special armor. Like, it doesn't make sense. I get too into my characters, man. I get a little too invested in their personal plot. So there were some pacing issues that kept it from climbing above the rest of the games on my list.
Yeah, no doubt. I can definitely feel that that critique in that manner. I'm kind of the opposite. I kind of like playing when I'm a character, playing these open world video games that gives you, a significant amount of player choice. I kind of like playing it, like stretching myself as thin as I possibly can within the context of the game, just to see if I can, because I like being overpowered at certain points. So sometimes I hope, if I do this quest line, I might get this overpowered weapon, and it's even more rewarding if it's a game that has a villain I absolutely despise, because then I want to use that overpowered weapon or item on the bad guy so I can kill him quicker and then talk crap to him after he's dead. But I definitely feels that Ghost of Tsushima is definitely as great as advertised. I guess we can both agree upon. My number 9, I hope it doesn't sound basic bitch to a lot of people, but I swear this game is just really that damn good. It's Fall Guys. Fall Guys has been a game that I very rarely go for trendy games, like games that just come out of nowhere and everyone plays it. I kind of, take a step back, observe it, and see if it really is a game that has lasting power. Fall Guys was an exception, because Fall Guys came out like at the height of when we were all in lockdown and not a lot to do. And, I see this game and it just looks fun. It's literally like, and I don't know if you've watched these shows like Wipeout or, Total Elimination, or, like these mass game shows where you're doing an obstacle course and all of that. And I don't know how to describe it, but it's like this rush of trying to win and trying to screw over your opponents, and then trying not to get screwed over yourself, and then doing these crazy mechanical moves. Like there's this one instance I was doing the slime climb obstacle course, and I almost slide off because someone pushed me, and then for some reason I manipulated the game, my jump, so I can do a dive back onto the stage. And it's just that rewarding feeling that you averted certain doom and end up winning the show. I don't know. You'll probably be seeing at the moment my Twitch gameplay of me playing Fall Guys and seeing all of the perilous things that I, have encountered this year. It's just this exhilarating rush of going to a trampoline indoor theme park or something like that and not being able to experience it in real life. So you're getting your kick in the virtual world. It's fun. It's like pure unmitigated fun for me, and that's why I have to put it on my list. What'd you think, Jesse? Am I out of my mind or
No,
like that?
not at all. And it raises, I think it goes back rather to what we were saying earlier, and that this year kind of made the gaming experience a little bit different. Like you looked at experiences with a little bit more value, multiplayer games especially, and especially for me, someone who doesn't have a lot of time for multiplayer games. I mean, that's why Baldur's Gate's on my list. It happened to be a multiplayer game that I had time for, and I loved it. Fall Guys, for me, was an experience that I got to share with my son and my girlfriend. So we had a lot of fun. Like you said, it's hard to explain. I would say that it is American Ninja Warrior if everyone tried to get through the course at the same time. And it's a blast. It's just a chaotic disaster. The only reason that it didn't make my list, because clearly I did find some time to play it this year, is that it didn't have a lot of lasting power in my house. There was just so many other games that I was trying. My son has an unhealthy obsession with Fortnite. My girlfriend has all of her own games in her queue. So we played it, loved it, and then kind of drifted away. But I can definitely respect its place on your list.
No doubt. And the soundtrack is just so fun. It's just so fucking good. I got it. It's just this whimsical techno beat. It just gets you pumped up before you get smacked in the face and then fall about 80 feet and then have to restart from the back and then get griefed. So you end up losing in the first round. But it doesn't matter. It's just so fun. So I'm gonna toss it back to you for your number 8 pick and let them know, because it's gonna be
if at number 9 you were asking me why is this one so low, I'm ready for this discourse. Number 8 is the Final Fantasy VII remake. Another one that everyone should be familiar with, and another one that I'm sure everyone was like, how is this so low on your list? Especially as we continue down the list, as you guys will learn, I'm quite the RPG player. So I guess I'll just get right into it. Final Fantasy VII Remake, I never planned to play.
What?
So hear me out. I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, but my love for the series didn't start until 10. So I went back and played the older games, but I never actually went back and played 7. Which is a crime in and of itself. I know, like, please drag me through the mud, and like I put my Twitter handle at the beginning of this video. Please send me, all of the hate that I deserve.
These slight spoilers, because I have to say it, because let's just say there is a significant possibility.
There's a big difference between where I place this game and where you place this game.
Yeah, let's say that. So, and just the simple fact that you never played the original. Okay,
right, and that's actually why I never intended to play this one, because I was like, listen, I can't play this and really appreciate it if I haven't experienced the original title. And I had that mindset, but then it came out, and like all my friends are really into it. And like I said, I am a Final Fantasy fan, so I was like, all right, let me jump in. Obviously, the game was good. The issue that I had with it, the reason it is so low for me, is that A, I couldn't appreciate it to the full extent because I hadn't played the original game. And B, as it was coming out, they had marketed that there was an alternate mode of play where it would play in the original turn-based style. Now, I love my turn-based RPGs, so I had a high expectation for that going in. When I selected that game mode, it was just like an autoplay of the default combat. So an element that I had kind of built my hopes up for wasn't there, and that kind of took some of the wind out of my sails. But that said, I mean, it made my top 10 for a reason. It is obviously a good game. Anyone who has it on their list or higher on their list, I absolutely understand why. It just so happened that the universe aligned in a way that I couldn't appreciate the game to its full value. And this is my list, so that's where it fell.
You see, Jesse, I don't have a beef with it being, based off of what you just described, I have no beef with it being this low, specifically because this game is, I mean, I think we can both agree on a technical level, this game is extremely well put together and extremely well done. Even though I do agree that I did feel even though I kind of like my RPGs both turn-based and a little bit more dynamic, I will agree with you on saying that that not being up to the hype that we kind of set up for ourselves, that was that's from a technical standpoint I wish they would have done and hope they do for the sequel, the next part. But I will say that, and I will get into it potentially later on in the video, but a lot of Final Fantasy VII Remake's appreciation that I would assume would happen for a lot of people comes from if you played the original game, because there's a lot of things that happen in the game that directly call back to the original interpretation of the game. And so if you don't have that attachment, it's kind of a catch, it's kind of a flip of the coin. Either it'll be so good to you that it resonates regardless, or it'll probably resonate, but it's not going to hit you as much as it probably would have if you played it. So it's going to be a take it or leave it, or if you just didn't like the game, you just don't care for it. So that is 100% fair, Jesse, even though I would still say, you could at least put it in the top 5.
Yeah, when I start getting to the other ones. I do want to say before we move on, that's something that Final Fantasy VII R really succeeded in, was getting me excited for the next installment. One of my other reservations for this game was, listen, I don't want to play a Final Fantasy game that they're already telling me is going to be like a serialized experience. I'll wait for all of them to come out and I'll play through whatever box set they release at that point in time. But sure enough, the ending of this game was probably like the most exciting and kind of jaw-dropping moment I've had out of any Final Fantasy title, just because it subverted a lot of what I was expecting.
And with that statement, let me move on to my number 8 before I just
before we derail. Yeah.
Yes, because So my number 8 is another oldie that got goodie. See, I gotta amend that, because when this game initially came out, boy oh boy, was it 2020 personified in video game form. But over the years that it's been released, and some changes and some fixes, it really made itself an actual full dynamic experience. And even better for me, I was able to pick it up for the free because it was one of the PlayStation Plus's free games of the month, so I didn't have to pay any money. And I'm talking about Star Wars Battlefront 2. Another thing I guess you can say me and Jesse mutually love and appreciate is the Star Wars franchise. And I'm pretty sure Jesse would agree that the old school OG Battlefront series was one of the best video game series that ever to be associated with Star Wars. The dynamic feel, the way you can switch between the general troopers to space battles to lightsaber force wielders or any of the other hero characters, it was fun. And when they brought it back with the 2015 Star Wars Battlefront, it was a massive disappointment. It wasn't a massive disappointment, but it was a disappointment. When the second one initially came out, that was when it got massively disappointing for a lot of bogus reasons that EA implemented, like obsessive and aggressive microtransactions and a lot of pay to win features and a lot of just general features that was omitted. But maybe it was because Disney told them to fix it, or you'll never be able to make another Star Wars game or what have you. But they definitely fixed the ship, and by this year, the game was fun. I will say, it was phenomenal to play on a multiplayer. If you're into the whole Battlefront, Call of Duty-esque first-person shooter, team-based shooter, however you want to quantify it, it was really good. This was I was hungry for more Star Wars content, and and another game on my list will let you know just how hungry and thirsty I was and how much I was willing to consume it. And being able to play this high definition, dynamic looking Star Wars game that took you through all these eras, it was fun. It was responsive. I liked being on Coruscant and during the Clone Wars, the space battles and flying the infiltrator Darth Maul ship in the space battles. I loved it. The massive hero battles on Jakku and everywhere, that was awesome. I liked the feel of it. my favorite mode to play was the heroes versus villains mode, where you got to play as the iconic characters, and having Luke Skywalker and Rey with the yellow lightsaber on the same team fighting against Palpatine and Darth Vader. That was cool. That was very cool, and brought me back to the old days of playing the original Battlefront 2 on my friend's PS2 on the Tatooine map, where it was the same type of deal. So it was fun. It was a nice little it was a nice Star Wars experience that that really wet my whistle for bigger and better Star Wars experience that I would have this year. And it definitely was just a tier above these my 10 and 9. I will say like from 7, I will tell you guys, from 7 up, that's when it'll be a massive divide from my bottom 3. So Jesse, you got anything to say about Battlefront 2?
I do. Battlefront 2, man. So I was there when it launched. I experienced the worst of Battlefront 2. With that said, like, my friends and I still tried to make the best of it, especially considering that heroes versus villains mode. Even when the game was, really hard to appreciate because it was riddled with so many microtransactions, to the point that progress felt like a waste of time. Like, investing time in that game felt like time wasted. That said, they've course corrected almost every problem that game had. I was actually talking to one of my good friends about this the other day, in that I was kind of personally upset that it took them so long to do it. Like, I understand that, obviously those corrections take time. I'm not a game developer, however long it needs to take you, I understand. But what bothers me is that it took so long that the vast majority will remember Battlefront 2 as that catastrophe when it launched, and not as the genuinely good game that it is now. This is one of the few games that I still have installed on my consoles. I've got it on my Series S right now. There are very few games that I go back to, that I play time and time again. But Battlefront 2 was good enough by the end of it all to be on that short list.
That's dope to hear, and it's interesting to hear that you were one of the initial players of that game. I mean, I will openly admit it, that when Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out, I was kind of not on the, like, already on the mend with EA's games, because there was a couple of them I still appreciated here and there. So that wasn't anything that was stopping me, but I was definitely keeping up with it, and seeing the writing on the wall beforehand. So I was like, I'm gonna wait and see. And then it just really started snowballing. So I'm like, it looks like I'm not gonna see at all. But I definitely agree with the course correction as well. And your analogy, your example you brought up about how most will only remember it as the bad version of the game and not what it became as the best version. It reminds me of Street Fighter V. I personally, even excluding all of the problems it had, I never really could get into the fighting mechanics of Street Fighter V. It didn't appeal to me like Street Fighter 4 or Third Strike. But my brother, he's been with Street Fighter V from Jump Street, and I've been able to see and appreciate the way that Capcom course corrected extremely hard with Street Fighter V. So I definitely see that point, and I can definitely understand the appreciation and why it's still stuck with you, considering how much better it has gotten. So yeah, definitely Star Wars Battlefront 2 earning its stripes a whole 3 years later, right? It came out in 2017, if I'm remembering.
Yeah, close to it. Something about games that take years to actually get to the place they needed to be. Just always interesting to talk about.
Yeah, almost like they should have been doing that from Jump Street. But in any case, big man Jesse, throw them to you. Let us know what your number 7 is.
Okay, it's still weird. I gotta be honest. My list is still weird. I don't think anyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, this list is okay, until I at least get to number 5. And even then, it's questionable. So number 7 was Mafia: The Definitive Edition by Hangar 13. This was a game that originally came out, I believe, on the PlayStation 2, and a part of a series that I didn't actually start playing until Mafia 2. So this represented a game that I had missed from a series that I liked, and when it was coming out completely rebuilt, I had to check it out. I know these days Scorsese has some hot takes, but back in the day I was really into some Scorsese films. So having a game genre that leaned into like just that mafia style of storytelling, I was very excited to get back into it. I hadn't had a good one in quite some time because Mafia 3 was a little bit of a bust. And this experience was awesome. Seeing a game rebuilt to the depth that this game was super, super humbling. Honestly, one of the best looking games on the previous generation, that being the PS4 and Xbox One, just because so much work was put into it. The story was top notch, it always was. The writing in those games is always phenomenal. It was one of the few saving graces of Mafia 3. So having a clean, modernized take of what is one of, in my opinion, one of the like best video game stories, to be put out, it really just locked it in. There were some things holding it back, like it's not GTA, this isn't a fully open world experience. Probably worked out better for me, but I understand why it's not, higher for everybody else. Mechanics were a little dated here and there. There were a couple bugs on occasion. But by and by, it was just a really, really solid experience. The story experience was phenomenal. And, for the week that I was engrossed in it, because it isn't the longest game, I wasn't worried about everything crazy happening in 2020, man. I was just playing my Mafia game and living out, I guess, the worst version of my life.
No, I definitely feel as you and understand you on that one. Mafia games, I have a friend and my dad, they were into when those games were first coming out, they were into it hard. So seeing the Mafia re-release kind of hopped on my radar fairly late. So I wasn't really able to really sink my teeth into it or get a real understanding on the differences. But from what I have seen now, from then to now, it definitely, a lot of people I've seen echo a lot of your same sentiments about it. And considering that these games came out kind of in the prime of the GTA 4 period, where it was like the lead up to GTA 4 and post GTA 4, when you had your Mafias and your Saints Rows and even your Crackdowns to an extent, trying to fill that gap. It's good to see that they gave this one, which I felt had a lot of strong narrative strength, a lot of strong narrative strength to it. Not, so much trying to emulate what GTA did, but like you said, emulate the Scorsese films and everything. So yeah. Now, when you say living out the worst versions of your life, that does beg me to ask this question.
What I mean is, if we're going to video games all year long, right, for escapism, what does it say that I'm leaning towards the game where I'm like, sticking up liquor houses and things? Like, what does that mean? It's got to be something bad. But listen, I came here for a video game list, not for a therapy session. So you're not allowed to dive into that one.
I understand. No, when I used to be on GTA 5 pretty hardcore.
Yeah, listen, you know what happens on GTA Online, okay? You don't talk about it outside of GTA Online.
Little anecdote. See, I played this, it didn't count because I was playing Red Dead 2 very much last year as well as this year. So it couldn't have made the list. But I did on the last playthrough I did on Red Dead Redemption 2. I literally stole a train and ran over at least 6 people in the train while shooting at a bunch of government agents, and was just rampaging. So trust me, I definitely
see, like I said, worst version of your life.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is I was playing him as I'm trying to play Red Dead as a good cowboy. Like I'm trying to play him as as a good guy.
That was your face run?
That was my face run. That was that was Stone Cold about to run over Rikishi right when, and the cops just so happened to run in front of the pickup truck right before he committed manslaughter.
Oh man. All right, we're losing the audience. You got to get out of the wrestling references.
Yes. Even though they love that, they love it. They love it. We might me and Keith might have to have you on one of our podcast episodes fairly soon. But my number 7. Oh, this is going to be like a lot of people going like some damn Q. You're just now finishing this. You're just now finishing this. And yes, I'm just now finishing this game. God of War 2018. Listen.
I'm glad you just beat it. Now we can talk about it.
Listen. So here's the thing. The last time I played this game was in 2018 when it came out. And I did not realize just how close to the end I was when I stopped playing it as I actually was. Because I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna beat this game. I'm going to be blown away and I'm gonna forget about it. And I don't want that. So I'm gonna take my time, I'm gonna pull back, I'm gonna play some other things, focus on some other stuff, and then come back. Literally a whole year goes by, I don't touch the game. I literally just stare at it. That and another game I'm probably gonna get to when we get to it on your list. But but I definitely was like, and then this year I'm like, my God, let me play some God of War. And then I'm like, okay, let me kick the dog shit out of these Valkyries because I want to get the armor. I want to challenge myself. I'm already playing it inherently on hard mode, so I want to play fight the Valkyries and whatnot, make a challenge for myself. And I do that. I'm having fun. I'm getting hyped, feeling like Kratos and just kicking all of the ass, take down the Valkyrie Queen. Then I'm like, let me see what this Niflheim. I did kind of mess with it a little bit, but let me go really see, what this is like. And then I'm kicking all of their asses too. And then I just finally decide, you know what? I think I'm upgraded enough and I got a lot of cool armor. I can't wait to fight 80 more bosses and go to these other realms. I still haven't gone to Asgard. I know I'm going to go to Asgard. The very next story mission I do, Jesse, is the final Baldur fight. Spoilers, is the final Baldur fight. I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't the end of the game, is it? This isn't. I didn't really waste a year not playing this game, not realizing I was literally at the last part of the game. Because the best thing about God of War is how it makes it feel like you are going on this journey and you kind of just lose yourself in it. So it's not like narrative beats that make it feel like, oh, it's weird. You can tell when things are ramping up. You can tell when revelations are being made, but it's not forced. It's not phoned in. It feels organic. So I guess because it felt so organic and I went so long without playing it, it didn't dawn on me that I just felt like it was, I'm still going on these adventures with Kratos and Atreus and having fun. And then, oh shit, this is the end. And then everything starts flooding back. And I'm this awesome, I call them the Zack Snyder fights because they feel straight out of a dope ass Zack Snyder movie with all of his awesome fight scenes and fighting him and doing all of this cool stuff. And it's just like, God. And that's just the last part of the game. Let me tell you about the overall feeling of the game and how, as a person who's played all of the previous God of Wars and understands Kratos' story arc and his path and how low he really got in the original series, and him literally coming to terms with he now wants to be better. He now wants his son to do better. He wants to do right by his son. It took him some time to really start putting the pieces together, but it felt natural. It felt great. And as a person who always wanted Kratos to get a dub, who wanted him to not feel like he's a monster and stop being manipulated by others trying to take control of his grief and his anger, and almost like Kratos taking back his power, but not like in God of War 3 where he took back his power but only was set on vengeance. Now he's taking back his power, but he's doing it to create something new rather than destroy. And how Atreus picks up on those learnings, and the super twist at the end that I didn't see coming, and all of that. The game was as awesome as advertised. It deserved every accolade it got in 2018. I'm so sorry, everyone, that it took me this long to play it. It's just that awesome. Jesse, I know you got some thoughts on it, so let them know.
Before I dive into that, I want to ask you, after you finished that plot, like the final mission with the big reveal, did you go back to the cabin?
You're damn right I did.
Okay, I just got to make sure, man. I got to make sure. Because if not, we would have to put a pause on the whole conversation. You'd have to boot it up. Anyways, so my experience with God of War was really special. And I'm really glad that it made your list just so that I have the chance to really tell you about it, because it is something that's very near and dear to me. A big issue that I think a lot of long-running game series have is that they don't mature with their target audience. If you look at something like Kingdom Hearts, when I was a kid, Kingdom Hearts was phenomenal, had a huge fan base, everyone was attached to it, they would buy any game that came out with the Kingdom Hearts name on it. And now it kind of struggles to maintain that same fan base. Like, people are always divided, something comes out, they don't know if they're interested or not, and I think a big reason of, like, a big contributor to that is that they didn't mature with their audience. You know, the 13-year-old Jesse, who we mentioned earlier, who was in love with Kingdom Hearts, he's not around anymore. You know, I've got evolved tastes, I've got evolved interests, and I need a little bit more depth in the media that I consume, and Kingdom Hearts never grew up with me. Then you look at something like God of War, and back in the day it was this huge, chaotic, just jump in, have fun, smash people apart, a disaster of a game. Like, you just went in and you were ruining the lives of gods. Like, it was unprecedented and a lot of fun, especially for a teenager like I was at the time. But when God of War came out, I wasn't that teenager anymore. Kratos having a son and experiencing a new journey, which was, learning about loss and fatherhood and evolving, from, this angry person, was very unique to me because I had just recently had a kid of my own. So I was kind of able to go on my own journey developing as a father, obviously not at all the same as his journey, but it was really cool to see a game that I had grown up with directly reflecting themes and relationship elements that I was currently experiencing in my own life. For that reason, if we ever sit down and talk about like our favorite games from the entire console generation, God of War is probably in my number one spot.
Jesse, you just blessed the viewers and myself with an amazing idea that we definitely will have to get into. That's just got to say that.
Well, I will save the more in-depth God of War discussion for when we sit down for that. But yeah, the universe aligned for me to experience that in the best way possible, and God of War was an awesome experience for me.
Yep. God of War was just amazing. Like, it was amazing. And like, kind of as a person who's not a dad but has a dad who, I love my dad. We've gone through so much, so many things, and seeing that, and just like, it literally gave me a grander appreciation for my dad, and that I already appreciated the hell out of my dad, but then just seeing that from Kratos' eyes and knowing where he started from, and a lot of it, and I'm gonna throw it to you because I actually messed up the order, because this was supposed to be my number 6, and my number 6 is now my number 7. Just talking to you about this is reminding me that, but it takes me back to the end of God of War 3 when Kratos starts developing the minimal relationship with Pandora, which I remember reading the dev team kind of kicked themselves because they didn't have enough time to really flesh it out like they wanted to. But that's when we really started to see glimpses back to the softer side of Kratos that he probably had with his wife and daughter. And seeing that reemerge with his relationship with Atreus, it's finally, I remember reading this in the Game Informer, and I had it and I thought it was up on my wall, but I see it's not. But it was counting down the top 100 greatest video game character heroes of the the 360 and PS3 era. And like, they had Kratos there, and one of their last line was, "Kratos will not be broken." And that resonated in my mind constantly playing this game, because after everything he's gone through, and now after him losing another wife that truly accepted and loved him, and going on this adventure with this son he's not sure he can raise, and then at the very end of it, when he tells Atreus, without going into too much, that they have to be better gods, be better than the gods that came before him. That spoke so much, because those words carried weight coming out of Kratos' mouth, just based off of everything he's gone through. It means so much more. So God of War is a mastercraft. Put that at number 6 in you guys' mind, because that's where it's supposed to be. And what I'm about to say is number 6 is my number 7. But other than that, Jesse, you let the beautiful people know what you got next up.
Yeah, definitely. And if my previous picks were a little bit divisive, this is the one that no one is going to stand by me on. Number 6 is Gears Tactics. I am a big strategy fan. I absolutely love games like Civilization, like XCOM. Those are some of the titles that I mentioned before. You know, those rare ones that I keep going back to. I like puzzles. I like having to solve things. Whenever a video game can present that concept to me, like in the structure of something like combat, let alone the cool and over-the-top combat that the Gears series is known for, sign me up. Like I'm in there. So combining a long-running franchise that I am really personally attached to, like Gears, with gameplay that I never expected to see in that series, it was really just a match made in heaven for me. This was definitely something that was a personal pick. I really, like, if you come at me with criticisms, man, I don't have defenses. I just really, really loved this one. I really love the style of game. It was at the time, like, it came out, or was made available to me at least, very recently after I had wrapped up my Gears 5 playthrough, and the brief time I spent on the multiplayer there. It gave me more of the universe. It gave me a fresh take on like the combat mechanics that I was used to, as far as like cover shooting and active reloads and things like that. And like I said, it was just a match made in heaven. It was the perfect game for me at the time that it came out, and because of that, it still resonates with me really strongly.
Oh, well, first things first, I'm not going to have any real rebuttal against it, because, I mean, I've seen Gears Tactics and I've seen gameplay because I just recently got Games Pass, and I've never been a tactical shooter, like, not a top-down like your XCOMs, like, so that hasn't really grasped me, so I'm not going to say either way if this is wrong. From what I've seen, it was nominated at the Game Awards, so it couldn't possibly be that bad if it's up there as, legit award contendership.
It's 2 places above Final Fantasy VII, okay?
See, I'm letting it slide. I'm letting it slide because I understand you're as a person who.
I'm just saying you don't gotta go easy on me, man. I know this is a little weird.
The reason I'm taking it so easy on you because and I'm gonna get to it. I promise you guys I'm gonna get to it. But as a person who has lived and breathed and eaten the entire story of Final Fantasy VII, I completely and 100% get why it's that placement on your list. So I'm giving you these freebies, but. Yeah, the Gears Tactics, it looks interesting. I've always been an outside observer with the Gears of War franchise, always wanted to get into it and, acknowledging and, appreciating the characters that exist within the universe, but never really gotten an opportunity to really experience it. But like I said, now with Games Pass and being completely familiar with the first 3 games, and they have 4 and 5 on Games Pass, I might give it a chance and check out what these newer games are looking like. So yeah, Gears Tactics, no problems with that one. So I'm gonna hop into my number 6 / what was supposed to be my number 7. So, but in any case, it is a game, again, another game that came out, long ago, and it was on a lot of people's lists. But I finally sat down and played it. Still am playing it in all honesty. But Horizon Zero Dawn, that game is. Just to keep it short, sweet, and to the point, is the best version of the Breath of the Wild style video games that started to come out as Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, was making the rounds and blowing everyone's mind. Horizon Zero Dawn stands shoulder to shoulder with that game, and not just simply because it's a clone, because it's not. There's a lot of differences between those two, but as far as crafting a large, dynamic world and a lot of cool backstory that you wouldn't find. It's a very unique game with a cool premise, a nice looking world, and a lot of cool stuff going for it. It was very much on one of the games I really needed to play lists for a long period of time. If you thought me going a year without playing God of War was bad, I went 2 years not playing that game because I bought it the same day I got God of War, and it took me till this year to play it. So yeah, that was an issue that I rectified, and it's just so much. It's a beautiful game. Ashley Birch, one of my favorite voice actors in the industry, plays Aloy. Just not to go into the full story, because I think you guys should enjoy it yourself. She's basically an outcast, can't really interact with her group of people until she's old enough to take part in this contest, where she'll finally be acknowledged. And then something happens on the day she's supposed to become a part of the village, and this sets her on this journey of discovery and action. And it's cool. I say it's a mixture between Assassin's Creed and Breath of the Wild. Yeah, that's about it. It's a good mixture of that. It has a lot of good choice, a lot of dynamics to it, and I very much enjoyed it. You got any thoughts on Horizon?
Yes, a little bit more brief than my previous thoughts, though. My experience with Horizon is quite limited. When Horizon dropped, it was obviously on my radar, but I wasn't sold. As I've mentioned a couple times already, I'm not huge into open worlds. And going into Horizon specifically, I had sat down to watch a friend of mine play it before I made the purchase myself. And by some weird stroke of fate, whether it was his system or his copy of the game, his experience for the first hour and a half was just horrendously buggy. It was patched very quickly after that, but this was my introduction. It was very buggy. It was rough for him to enjoy, and me knowing I'm really not an open world guy, I decided then and there, all right, I'm gonna hold off on this one. And I never went back to actually play it. That said, my peers, my friends, everybody, a lot of people close to me have recommended it, and they've had great experiences with it. Now that it's on PC, it might be something that I set out to experience. But while some of these games I've mentioned, things just kind of aligned for me to enjoy them. Unfortunately, in this case, things aligned and kind of kept me from diving into it. But I mean, it's been well received. It's quite renowned by this point in time. So I definitely understand why it's on your list. I do need you to stop beating yourself up for taking so long to finish games, though, because every time you mention it, I remember that it took me 5 years to beat Arkham Knight. I just wrapped this one up this year. So yeah, unfortunately not a lot to say there, but I do respect its place on your list just based on what I know. After I play it a little bit myself, maybe I'll have some more to say, and I'll be able to judge you a little bit harder for including it among these other great games like Budokai 3 and Battlefront 2. But for now, yeah, that's about all I got.
Alrighty. So now I'm gonna throw it back to you, and we're now in the top 5, ladies and gentlemen. So from this point forward, this is either going to extremely excite you guys and open your eyes to some brand new games, or it's going to dramatically disappoint you. And I don't think it's gonna disappoint you. So Jesse, go ahead and hit him with your number 5.
Yeah, I mentioned to you before we jumped in that my list had kind of shuffled around a couple times over the last few weeks, because we've been planning this for a little bit now. The top 5 really didn't move around so much. So now that we're up here, I'm quite confident that even the picks that you might disagree with, I have at least decent explanations. So coming in at number 5 is Persona 5 Royal. I played Persona 5 when it first dropped. I loved it quite a lot. I'm a big Persona fan. I hinted at it earlier that I am quite an RPG fan, and there are a few on this list. And JRPGs especially have a special place in my heart, just because they kind of hung on to that old school turn-based approach that is still quite dear to me. And Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal follow that trend. This is a game that has won quite a few awards for its soundtrack. It's been nominated in several different locations for best RPG of the respective years that each version came out. I picked Royal specifically because I never beat the original Persona 5. I just kind of got lost in the ridiculous length of that campaign. But Royal I actually did see through to the end. I love building the party. I love the mechanics of recruiting different demons and kind of building your roster to suit however you want to approach the different dungeons. There are always, of course, optimal and high level creatures to bring with you, but there's enough variety in the selection of allies as far as your recruitable demons are concerned, that you can really take on any area however you see fit. So my playthrough, as I was going through it in tandem with a good friend of mine, we were having quite different experiences. You know, you combine that varied approach to the combat with the different directions that the plot can take depending on your relationships with certain characters and what sort of decisions you've made, and it crafted like a unique RPG experience that I was able to sink my time into and enjoy from start to finish.
Ooh, see, and I didn't tell you this initially because I was going to save it for when we were recording.
Oh, so this is when you're going to stop taking it easy on me.
No, you're probably not going to take it easy on me because I have Persona 5 Vanilla sitting right here on my desk, and I did not play it at all. I've been trying to tell myself, Q, you need to play Persona 5 again because I fucking love that game. And
kill me.
Shout outs to Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, and shout outs to Danya. She's also Danya Harrington, a part of the comic book debate with us as well. And those two things are what convinced me to buy this game, and it's awesome. I'm a sucker. I love anime. I love anime, love everything about it. Like the moment I popped it into my PS4 and the intro play, I'm like, whoa, shit, this is like a high budget anime intro. Let me it seemed like every time I would play it initially, it's like, man, I'm like watching another episode of Persona 5. And so to hear that, and I was kicking myself because I got Persona 5. And then it's like, okay, I let it sit for a couple of months because like God of War, now that you tell me it's extraordinarily long, I now know that's not going to be an issue. But I was kind of like, I don't want to rush through the game. I don't want to just railroad through it. I want to take my time and enjoy it. And then Persona 5 Royale became localized. I'm like, shit. So do I got to get rid of this one and get Persona 5 Royale because I know they added a lot of stuff to it, or, you know, enjoy Persona 5 Vanilla and then get it? I now feel like I'm at a crossroads. I'm boxed in and I don't know how to help me. Jesse is what I'm asking. Help me make the decision.
I hear you. As someone who's played through both, I would say that it comes down to your approach to gaming. And what I mean by that, like me personally, I mentioned earlier, there are very few games that I go back to after I've played through them once. So something like an 80 to 120 hour RPG, I am not going to play more than one time. So for me, the decision was quite easy. When Royal became available, I picked it up, and that was the one that I decided that I was going to see to the end. Because yes, there's a decent amount of extra content. There are additional summons, like there's a little bit more material there. And if I had played through the original version of the game from start to finish, I wouldn't have had it in me to push myself through the larger version of the game. However, because you can really approach things with a little bit of variety, like I was saying before, and you can build different relationships and choose to prioritize different things as you're going through the game, you could easily create two different experiences for yourself, playing the vanilla version and then playing Royale at a later time. So if you are the type of person who is comfortable going back and re-experiencing things, I would say, especially since you're a fan of anime, you'll have a little bit more to be hooked into there. I would say that it would be perfectly fine seeing vanilla through to the end and then trying Royale later. On the other hand, if you're like me and you can't commit that much time to one game, you should probably just pick up the other one, man.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on that one. So sounds like I'm gonna be getting Royale fairly soon because I need to, if I'm gonna play this Persona 5, which I very much enjoyed. This is gonna be a testament to how flipping early I am in the game. I'm literally at the point where all three of them are just now at the super fancy hotel eating the food, and I can tell by that slight gasp you just gave that means I'm extremely early and I basically haven't experienced anything. So yeah, definitely gonna get on some Persona 5 Royale, and that's an excellent start to your top 5. And now it's time to go to mine. My number 5, the first of my top 5, is a game I've been looking forward to for a long time. This is actually, looking at my list, the first game of 2 actually, which is hilarious, to come out in the actual calendar year of 2020. And that is Doom Eternal. I fucking love this game. I loved its predecessor, Doom 2016. There is something about, as a person who plays first-person shooters, who plays your Call of Duties, your Borderlands, etc., 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 There is something so cathartic about playing a first person shooter where the intention is to make you feel like the biggest badass imaginable, killing the most deadliest evil things imaginable, with the most kick ass heavy metal soundtrack blaring in the background that makes you want to pick up the biggest broadsword you see, jump into the pits of hell, and just starts whipping ass on any and all demons that step up to you. And that is the feeling that Doom Eternal has given me. This might be sacrilegious, but I played it on my PS4 Pro, and I know most get down with the Doom games on PC, like, because the old school way it's supposed to be played. But God, that game, just being able to pick up split a demon in two, breaking their back like Bane did Batman, or straight up headbutting the demon and just getting the BFG out and just wiping out a whole room of demons while Mick Gordon's God tier soundtrack blares in the background, getting a demon lightsaber and slicing anyone, getting the feeling of accomplishment after you take down one of the marauders and the guardian. It's just so awesome. And I like that they added a little bit more story to it, and as opposed to the first one, which was basically, here's this evil scientist lady opening a portal to hell. Deal with that, please. And actually added a little bit more nuance. I liked how they tied, everything together, that all of the Dooms matter. Even the ones that seemed like quasi reboots, they still matter. And of course, the gameplay is as fluid and as awesome as a Doom is supposed to feel. It's a hell of a ride. It was an amazing ride, a feeling of accomplishments, and one of the last true video games to have honest to God cheat codes in it that you don't have to pay money to unlock, and actually makes the replay value go up. Because a lot of these games, these first person shooters, actually, that don't have dedicated multiplayers, they lose a lot of replayability because it's not too much different that you can do when you go back to play the levels. But when you add that element with Doom Eternal, where you can custom go God mode, or be in permanent frenzy mode, or actually make it harder for you to do stuff, it re-ups the replayability, and I appreciate it heavily. Doom Eternal, keep kicking ass. If you can go to YouTube at your earliest convenience, look up the track The Only Thing They Fear Is You from Doom Eternal, and just rock the hell out on it. You got any thoughts, Jesse?
A few, but before I dive into that, I want to steal your role for 1 second and ask you a question. How would you compare Doom Eternal to the previous Doom entry?
Okay, so
as succinct as you can be. Yeah. Like, what was your experience between the two?
I would say, and this comes down because I'm a music guy. Music does a lot, can do a lot for me, whether it's in a movie, television show, video game, anything that's supposed to have any sort of soundtrack to it can enhance or unenhance my experience for me. So I will say the major thing about Doom to Doom Eternal is that I enjoyed Doom's soundtrack a little bit more than I did Doom Eternal's. Even though they played more varied songs in Doom Eternal, if that makes any sense. Because in Doom, you knew shit was gonna kick up when you heard the BFG division theme play in the background. When you heard that, and you're just going through the labs in Doom 2016, you knew you were about to get into some shit. Whereas in Doom Eternal, each level had their own dedicated theme, but not all of them stuck out. So I'm still getting this adrenaline rush, but that kick-ass theme isn't as prevalent in my mind as I want it to be. So that kind of was the only different factor. But other than that, just about everything else was for Chef's Kiss, picture perfect, straight up awesomeness.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned how important audio design can be in a game, because we kind of have neglected to mention that so far. And it's definitely something that I should have said when talking about Tsushima earlier. that a soundtrack, and whether that be the audio of the environment or the musical overlays, it's very important. And I'm glad that you were able to experience that to such a degree with the Doom series. But with that said, I have played neither one. And the reason I asked you to
Wow.
compare them, yeah, is because one of my very good friends is a Doom fan, and he tried endlessly to get me to play the first one, and I just never got around to it. Like when I'm making my queue of games to get to, for some reason FPS always fall to the bottom of it. Just because like narrative is super important to me, and I kind of feel like those are sometimes lacking in FPS titles. So I hadn't got around to the first Doom, and then the second Doom came around, and all he said was like, "Yeah, it's not as good as the first one." So I was like, "Well, that's to the bottom of the queue," and I just haven't got around to it. It is one of the ones on my list, and I mean, Eternal is on Game Pass currently. I'm sure we'll see both of them on there with Microsoft's recent Bethesda acquisition. But I mean, with that said, I can't hype that one up or bring it down too much because I haven't gotten to play them myself. Obviously, I mean, it's a storied franchise. It wouldn't be around to this day if they hadn't earned that place. So I'm sure all of those reasons you listed are more than legitimate.
I'll just say this, Jesse. How big of a penchant of heavy metal can you get it with? Like,
bro, that's why I'm trying to play that game. The soundtrack, I have listened to the soundtrack by itself.
Yes, see,
yeah.
and the viewers who watch the MulDiversity streams know I'm a black guy, but I always say the one genre of music I just will not mess with on a consistent basis is country. Anything else I will easily give a chance to, and more than likely will have my favorites. But sweet Jesus, Mick Gordon is such a master at this shit, and it just gets me so pumped up. I'm like, cyber demons, parody. Oh, guess what the hell is about to happen to you? I'm about to break my foot off in your ass, and then I'm gonna slit your throat with the broken, jagged edge piece of my leg, and that's what's gonna happen. And you're just gonna have to deal with it, and then I'm gonna reattach my leg after I'm done. But Jesse, I'm gonna throw it to you for your number 4.
Yep, number 4, recipient of the Japanese Game Award for Excellence, is Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's so hard to pitch and thoroughly describe something like the Yakuza series to anyone who hasn't played the game. Because these games have the serious, sometimes dark and heavy narrative of titles like Grand Theft Auto, like Red Dead Redemption, and then they couple it with karaoke mini games. So like it's really hard for me to deliver the tone and the reasons that the Yakuza franchise is so successful to someone who's never been in that field. However, Like a Dragon, I can say objectively was a phenomenal turn-based RPG. A crazy successful adaptation of something like a real-world environment to what we typically associate with these like fantasy worlds. Replacing classes with things like this guy's homeless and he can throw birdseed on somebody and make pigeons attack them. Just really off-the-wall, upbeat translations of what are normally reserved for, like I said, fantasy environments, and in this game they are juxtaposed on the real and dark and troublesome reality that is Japanese crime. A great narrative, great characters, and like Baldur's Gate, this represented a game that I didn't always have to take seriously. If I wanted to turn it on and experience that heavy narrative and really get a taste of the deep plots that I've mentioned I'm very into when it comes to games, I could do that, or I could jump in and I could go sing karaoke or go collect trash cans and turn those in, or I'm sorry, not trash cans, like soda cans, and turn those in for money, to buy new gear from the other homeless guy who for some reason only accepts cans currency. It gave me the option to experience the game however I wanted to, whether that day meant a lighthearted, ridiculous, over-the-top experience, or a nitty-gritty, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening experience. And I really appreciated that. And I definitely appreciate when something like a turn-based RPG can succeed in an environment that we wouldn't normally picture it. That genre has been dwindling, I would say, since the PlayStation 2 era. Things are more and more leaning towards the action RPG side of things. And while there is obviously a place for those, this style of game is always going to mean more to me. And with that said, it delivered on, the true turn-based experience in ways that Final Fantasy didn't. And that would probably be the only reason that this and Persona edged out something like Final Fantasy VII. They're all obviously great RPG games, but these two back to back really appealed to my individual taste. And I mean, I've played the whole Yakuza series, so I was able to again have that sort of appreciation. I've played the whole Persona series, and like we said, that wasn't the case with Final Fantasy. So maybe there was a little bit of nostalgia there, encouraging these picks too.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. See, personally, I've never played any of the Yakuza games, but I've seen the crazy ass cutscenes and some of the, like you said, the crazy eccentric story beats that, juxtapose a lot of the serious nature of it. So I definitely understand exactly where you're coming from and exactly your mindset with picking this. I've seen the trailers for Like a Dragon, and some of those Yakuza games are on Game Pass, so I may give it a try. Because thanks to your glowing recommendation, I very well will. So like you were with Doom, I'm kind of like there's kind of not a lot for me to add, but I will ask you this question: what is the funniest thing that you've experienced playing Yakuza? Because I know there is a litany of those in the game, and specifically in Yakuza Like a Dragon.
So from top to bottom, there are nothing but ridiculous and hilarious experiences. I mean, from your first room being atop like a brothel, and you're laying on a damp mattress, trying to figure out how you fell so far and how are you going to climb up from here, to you meet up with some guy who has like 3 guys dressed in different colored suits, and he's having you select which one you want to fight, and the whole scene is playing out like the introduction of a Pokemon game. To something more personal, like me just happened to be playing this and my girlfriend walks in and wants to know what the hell is going on, and I have no way of explaining it. There's nothing but fun and funny experiences to be had in that game in between those very heavy plot beats. So I was definitely not short of laughs throughout.
No problem and no doubt. So it's funny you mention funny moments that just happen out of anywhere. And it's funny you mention that being juxtaposed by serious moments, because my number 4 game of 2020 that I've played is none other than Resident Evil 2 Remake. Let me just say, on a personal level, this game might be one of my favorite games of all time. It's right next to its brother, cousin, however you want to quantify it, in Resident Evil 4, in my opinion, which I regard as one of the greatest video games ever made. And Resident Evil 2 is right up there because, as a person, Resident Evil is one of my favorite video game series. Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield are some of my favorite video game characters, and being able to re-experience their introductions like this, and in such a claustrophobic, highly dynamic manner, and still experiencing the craziness that is Resident Evil, just was awesome. I can't tell you how many times I was running for my life, screaming in my room, lights off, pitch dark, got the earphones on to get massive immersion, and then turning around when I realized I had the proper amount of ammo and said a cheesy 80s one-liner and killing a zombie only to get Malu out from behind by a liquor or something like that. It was awesome. It was a purely awesome, you hear the term pure video game experience being thrown around a lot. And if there was a perfect game that encapsulated this, it's Resident Evil 2 Remake for me. I can't tell you how many times Mr. X, Tyrant, ruined my fucking game experience in the best way by just popping up at the most inopportune times as I'm trying to collect something or I'm trying to navigate through, RPD. Like, it's like just straight ruining it. I can't tell you how cool it was and how rewarding it was when I finally blew his ass up with a rocket launcher at the end of Leon's campaign, or fighting Birkin for the last time as Claire in her campaign. And then I bought it deluxe, so I got access to the OG PlayStation 1 polygon models and everything, and playing through that and just seeing the ridiculous juxtaposition. It was awesome. It had a lot of heartfelt moments when it needed to, had a lot of cool moments when it needed to, and just an overall awesome, scary ass action pack experience that just from beginning to end had its foot on the throttle and wanted you to experience it multiple times to get the full experience. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. There's only 3 other games on this list that gave me more enjoyment than Resident Evil 2 Remake, and Resident Evil 2 Remake's enjoyment level for me is astronomical. You I know you're chomping at the butt to pick my brain about this because of how elated I am. So I'm gonna toss it to you, Jesse.